first? Who? Got to first base. Who? Got first. Who is on first? What are you asking me for? I'm asking you.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Who is on First. Thank you all for listening and really appreciate it. I am Tim Ellebrook. That's Brian Kaplinger, and that is Michael Ramsey. We are back, and it is 2026. It is a brand new season, and that's all that matters because now it's all about baseball. How you fellas doing?
I'm good, man. I'm ready for some baseball, so I'm thankful that the WBC is right around the corner.
Yep. Stoked.
Can't wait, man. Can't wait. Pitchers and catchers will be around the corner, too. I mean, it's coming, boys.
We're a
month and a half, right?
Month and a half, yeah. Heck yeah. Before we jump in, we got some good stuff today, but if y'all have stuck around, would love it if you do us a favor and subscribe to YouTube and the Twitter sphere at WOF Baseball Podcast. We're really going to be doing some fun stuff this year with the WBC. Got some cool content ideas, and we're going to get in a TikTok.
That's
I
right.
think.
Does that mean I get to see you guys do all the TikTok trends too?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that, but you can do that.
You boys will have to tell me what those trends are.
Right? All right, so let's jump in. We've been off for the last month and a half or so, getting through the holidays, jumping into New Year. So a bunch of stuff has happened in the free agent stuff, the offseason. A lot of moves have been made, some great trades. I'm going to throw a few things to you guys, but I'm curious to get your my microphone just decided not to work. That's cool. Get your idea in underrated signing or something like that. So some big moves to me, a big one to me was the Mets sending Brandon Nimmo and a trade with the Texas Rangers, and Rangers ended up sending Semien back to the Mets. So the Mets are going through an interesting thing because I think overall their roster is just, they're changing it up completely, which makes sense with David Stearns coming in a few years ago, changing out the old guard, so to speak. They didn't bring Alonso back. Alonso ended up going to Baltimore on that 5-year deal. And I could see a world where another big move is made that changes the whole thing. I know they're looking for so many players because outside of Lindor and Soto, I guess, and Semien now, don't really know what's going on with the Mets.
Pretty open door.
What do you guys money think? Is not the issue.
Yeah, no, for sure. What do you guys think about that move? Any thoughts about the Mets and the Rangers and what they got, what they gave up, and then what's happening with that team?
So for me, I mean, getting Semien's a great piece, but like you said, I'm not really sure where exactly the Mets are taking this at this point. They moved a couple other guys. Jeff McNeil got moved as well, which I think was probably the right call for him and Nimmo both, to move those guys. The Alonso piece, I know the marriage was never perfect there, but I mean, the guy raked, and had probably a better season the last couple of years than he'd had prior to that. So, but I think they kind of tarnished that relationship. But the move with Semien, I like for just the power and the defense he's going to bring. But once again, I'm not really sure what they're going to do as far as filling out the rest of that roster. A lot of young, unproven pieces or pieces that haven't shown up previously. Beatty's obviously going to be a big part of that, and seeing what he can provide. And was a Vientos or whatever. Yeah. Seeing what he brings. The catcher, I can't remember his name at this point.
Alvarez.
Alvarez, yeah. I mean, if he can stay healthy, I mean, he was showing some signs 2 years ago of a potential piece that could be a big piece of that. But I like that. The Rangers, it also makes sense for them. To me, the way things played out last year, they had to make some moves, and getting a bigger contract like that move, but bringing a valuable piece like Nimmo, who's on a similar contract, but just a different piece. See what you can provide to the team. A guy you probably, at worst case, can flip again in a year or two if you need to. So, kind of a strange move, but at least it was movement, I suppose, rather than just sticking with what you've had.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting to me, I think, in all of it too, is what does it say about the clubhouse, and we may never know. Seeing a lot of these pieces kind of move in that regard, they seem like they were pieces that maybe have been in conflict with other pieces that the Mets had. Not just talking about on field, but off field type of stuff too, and random comments. So you wonder how much that just kind of rubs at it on that side of it, because again, the Simeon, even Nimmo and McNeil, all of them kind of moving on. It makes sense to me because they're players that, I mean, they do add value in the right spot, but again, none of them are aircraft carrier players. They're not going to necessarily change your lineup in any capacity. Other than give you quality, supplemental pieces. And for me, I think the big move that's out there for the Mets that I think they really want to do and nobody's talking is the Kyle Tucker deal. Like, I think they really want to move him in some capacity, and that's why you saw some of these contracts kind of get moved, not because money is the big issue, but they just don't want to have that many big ones. They don't want to fall into like the Padres, books or anything of that magnitude where then you're just forced to offload people for pennies on the dollar. And so for me, it wouldn't be surprising. I know that's still going to be a somewhat of a timetable because you've got a lot of time. A lot of teams are going to be in on that bid. If they don't by some chance get into those conversations, that's when it gets interesting for me because I don't know that there's a lot of other pieces that they can really make a play for. I mean, maybe they go out there and look at someone like Louis Bob that could come at a little bit of a cost to get there because they're going to need outfield help because we all sitting here know that Soto is not the defensive answer in the outfield for them. So they're going to need somebody else, I think, on the outfield side. And I think they're primed to get younger there where they can. And I think that'll be the shoot. And again, if they can get Tucker, then the lineup for me goes back to just what it was last year. I mean, he provides the same type of offense that they have just given away in that regard. And he's probably better overall defensively than most of the pieces they gave away.
Yeah.
True.
For me, I think in general, 1,000-foot view, the moves are really good because if you think about the core that the Mets have had for a long time with Nimmo, even when they brought Lindor in like 2018, 2019, or COVID, I can't remember. It was quite early or right before was it right when he took over?
Seems right.
It was either right before or right after.
If you think about the core and what they've had, they haven't done anything with it. Like, they've made the playoffs twice or three times, got to the NLCS 2 years ago now, or I guess 2 seasons ago now, which was a big step. And then coming off that offseason, they made some good moves, and then they had the best run in baseball, and then all of a sudden it fell apart last year. So from a 1,000-foot view, I think it's like, well, this is not working, and we need to do something different. And the only thing to do different is to not keep bringing the same players back that have been there. And not that they're not playing, because, Alonso has had great seasons there, but it's not working. So we need to do something different. And you're not moving the Soto contract. You're locked into that, for the history of time, or for the rest of history. So you got to do something different. Lindor's contract's really big, so you got to think those two pieces are what has to be built around.
Yeah.
So the Simeon move in and of itself, I think is fine. The one thing that Stearns said in the offseason, I remember, is like, we've got to get better defensively because it's been bad.
Yeah.
Well, you just got rid of 2 players that were pretty bad. Defensively. Like, Nimmo's known for not being a great outfielder, has a great bat, not a great outfielder. Alonso has some of the worst first base defensive metrics. His value is on the other side of the baseball. So, and then they bring in a guy that's probably one of the best gloves in.
Yeah.
Coming
off of a Gold Glove.
Yeah, and durable.
Yep.
I mean, it's a guy that's going to play.
Super durable.
Yeah. And I believe Texas was the team that had the Platinum Glove Team Award. Is that a thing? I can't remember what that's called. The Blue Jays have won it for like 2 or 3 years in a row.
That sounds right. I think they won and the Cubs won the NL. So yeah, I think that sounds right.
So I think that's a good move. I'm curious because if you look at the lineup now, let me pull that up. Because if you look at their lineup, you're like, I don't know how this is going to work. And this is in the middle of the off season, and you would think and hope that it's not finished. But you're talking about Lindor, Simeon, Soto. They signed Jorge Polanco, who they're going to have DH or do first base, and he said he's never done that before. Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, Alvarez, Carson Binge, who is a prospect that's supposed to. Fangraphs is saying he's going to debut, and then Tyrone Taylor. You're looking at this, you're like, I don't know how this is going to work.
Yeah.
Especially for a New York team in the New York market. So we're looking at an unfinished product, you would think. So there's got to be moves made, but they also keep missing out, and that's getting around the league, and they're talking about that a lot. So it's an interesting position for David Stearns to be in too, I think, because comes from a market from Houston then to Milwaukee where he's had to be really creative and have a really tight budget, but has made everything work as most efficiently as best as possible. But now he comes to a market that you're expected to spend stupid amounts of money because you're making lots of money. And I don't know, it's an interesting position. So I agree with the move, and I think it's a good move, but you've got to compensate with other stuff. And there's free agents on the table, obviously, but are they the right fit? Because if you keep bringing more free agents that don't fit, then you're going to keep.
Well,
the
big question for me then becomes: let's not try and reinvent the wheel. He was successful in Milwaukee being creative, so for me, I would say let him be creative and see what he can do to fill this out. Like, even if you don't make a big swing at someone like a Tucker or one of the big name free agents that's out there, just because you have the money to spend doesn't mean you need to spend it in the offseason. Maybe that's something that you wait and capitalize on as you see how this team develops through the first part of the season. And then you can swing big with prospects. I mean, I know, it's either you're going to have to throw money right now or you're going to have to throw prospects later on to change it. But he's, like you said, he's been so creative and successful, like in Milwaukee, just finding those players that complement and fit well. What if they do that for a year and see where they land? Because you said it. I mean, that changes the dynamic of what they're used to. Mm-hmm. On paper, it's not going to be super sexy in the sense for the fan base. Yeah. But if it gets them wins and it gets them deeper in the playoffs, I mean, again, you can only hope to get to the World Series. No one can guarantee, say, hey, we're going to be in the World Series. I mean, you build your team as a contender, obviously not as a guarantee unless you're the Dodgers for some reason. You can do that.
Yeah, and it goes back to Steve Cohen said when he bought the team, he's like, I want to be the Dodgers of the East. Yeah. Well, I mean, you hired a guy that can build a system, but you got to do it. But also at the same time, I heard a quote from maybe it was Steve, maybe it was Chris Rose. I can't remember who it was, but he said, yeah, that philosophy is good to have, but it's also New York, and you can't just not spend money in New York. And I mean, I feel like you could go ahead.
If you spend money in it, or if you don't spend money and it works, nobody cares. The problem is if you don't spend money and it doesn't work, or you spend money and it doesn't work, which is what we've seen.
Yeah, I don't know, because if you think about Alonso didn't get re-signed, and you could tell even in the whole process of that, a lot was going on about how the Mets really didn't even reach out. Like, they offered him kind of pennies, and it kind of came out that they weren't really interested, and they got so much flack for it. And the team made it clear they didn't want him, and they don't believe that he's what they need going forward. But man, everybody blew up in their face. Now, it blew up in their face on social media. It blew up in their face in the eyes of baseball. So it's kind of like this. It's this weird thing. It's New York. It's the biggest market and the biggest stage of baseball. So it's this fine line that he has to play, because he also works for the richest man in baseball too.
Yeah.
Right. But what I'm saying too is, like, okay, they went out and signed Polanco to play first base. He's never really played first base.
Yeah.
But let's say he's a better overall defensive first baseman than what they had in Alonso.
Alonso, yeah.
And he has the same year he had last year for Seattle, but for New York.
Yeah.
Like, people are going to shut up. People aren't going to care that they didn't sign Pete Alonso anymore.
Yeah.
Because he's done everything that they needed him to do and was better. Now, that's the thing about, like, when you talk about coastal baseball, because it's like the fan base is there, and I'm not trying to make a slap at any of the fan bases here, but it's winning. And to them, it doesn't matter how they win, whether it's big contracts or little, but winning silences everything. It shuts the media up. It shuts the fan base up in the sense of, if you win, it doesn't matter who's on your team. Mm-hmm. You just have to win. And so, of course, in the offseason, that's when the media is at its biggest, all of that, the fanfare that comes with it. Yeah, you don't sign someone like Pete Alonso, who's, 40 home run guy, and it doesn't seem like you've replaced him in that capacity. Sure, people are going to talk, but again, you start winning and you actually get into the playoffs, a deep run into the playoffs without him, you'll start to see the signs that'll say, like, Pete who? Mm-hmm. They'll just move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Pete, segue there. To me, Baltimore has been one of the biggest movers of the offseason. Let me run down through everything real quick. So they brought Andrew Kittredge back over from the Cubbies. They signed Ryan Helsley to a 2-year deal, but it was an option, so it'll be a 1-year deal. They signed Pete Alonso to that 5-year big deal. I think it's $150 million. They sent, is it Taylor Ward? Or no, they got Taylor Ward for Grayson Rodriguez in a trade from the Angels, which I think was kind of wild at the time. I don't know if you guys remember that. That was like one of the first moves of the offseason. And then they made a big deal with Tampa Bay and brought Shane Baz over and sent some of their biggest prospects in the system, and then they just signed Zach Eflin. So my question to you guys is, like, Baltimore set out and said they need an outfielder with power, they need a starting pitcher, and a closer. They got all three, and then they made another move and brought Eflin in for innings.
Yeah.
Did Baltimore do enough to make themselves and put themselves in that crazy AL East picture to win the division and get into the playoffs?
Obviously, that depends a lot on how those young guys perform. Obviously, Holiday and Henderson. If those guys aren't producing, that's a huge issue. But if those guys produce where we think that they can, I think they made a lot of the steps they needed. Partially because we haven't seen the Yankees or the Red Sox, either one, making the big moves that I think they needed to make in order to.
Except with the Cardinals.
Yeah, the Red Sox are getting all those guys, but
team.
It's kind of interesting. Obviously, we'll talk about Toronto here in a second, but we're just a year removed from Baltimore being the number 1 seed in the AL, and so if those young guys perform up to that standard again, plus you're getting a guy, Taylor Ward, kind of a utility piece that could provide a little bit of power to that lineup, plus a very good young pitcher. It's going to be interesting to see. Now, obviously, I do think moving to Rodriguez for Ward was kind of an interesting piece of that, just because I think Rodriguez obviously is, once again, a young pitcher that I think was already kind of sitting in their 2 spot as far as their rotation, but they must have had their eyes on Baz already to make that move. But I think they definitely can find their place there in the 1 or 2 spot there in the AL East.
Yeah, for me, the question mark, and it's always going to be the question mark, is for the pitching, whether it'll hold up or not. I think they made the right moves, at least from Baltimore's standpoint. Like, they weren't shy about spending a little bit of money. They weren't shy, about getting the bigger names. Like, obviously, you bring in Alonso, you're saying something to your team. Like, we feel like we're in a spot that we can be competitive, and so. For me, it's can some of these pitchers hold up? You got to remember Trevor Rogers, who's probably going to be their frontline ace. he hasn't really proved it for a longevity, like a long period of time. Like, I mean, he looked great, and I think he has the stuff. I mean, I go back to the days when he was with Miami. I was clamoring that, hey, this is a guy you take a chance on. And it didn't, never happened. So, like, I think they have the pieces. I think signing Baz was tremendous for them. Ward, I think, is one of those that, in that ballpark, because you got to remember, again, they brought the fence back in, so it's going to be a hitters-friendly ballpark once again. And so some of those things are huge advantages for them. Now, am I ready to declare that they're going to be front runners in the AL East? I don't think so, because I think there are other teams that just have better talent. But we've seen it in the past. I mean, talent doesn't always translate to on-field success right away. And so, again, to your point, Michael, I think it's big for Holiday. Gunnarsson has to have a rebound year. I'd even throw Rutschman back in there. He's got to somewhat show up
100%.
once again for them to be more relevant. If not, the bigger question for me is do they have enough depth to really kind of hold them in the spot that it's going to take in the AL East? Because, I mean, again, we'll talk about it, but Toronto's not going anywhere. They've made that very clear. The Yankees are going to be the Yankees regardless. They're going to figure something out. Even if they're not necessarily doing it now, there'll be something they figure out. Boston's quietly putting together the right pieces for them. Now, will that translate? They're in the same boat I think Baltimore is. Young players have to kind of step up for that to take place, but they've got more proven pitching for me than Baltimore does. And so that's where, like, I think Baltimore
Boston
will be
does?
in the I think Baltimore will be in the mix. I just don't know if I'm ready to crown them as an opportunity to be somebody that's going to take over the East yet.
Yeah. The thing for me, I mean, I agree with you. The young kids all have to step up and put a season together. I would say the coaching change that they made that we didn't go over because it happened in the middle of the season is an interesting move that I think is a little underrated. I know a lot of people in baseball have different thoughts about the role the manager plays and the value of it, but you can look at these guys, you can look at Pittsburgh, and you could look at Miami. The record significantly changed after the move was made. And you never know. They could start the season in the same hole, and it's like, oh, the manager didn't make a difference. But when they fired when Baltimore fired the manager and put this guy in, the record, they had one of the best records in the baseball, the stretch run. They were just so far in the hole, it made no difference. Yep. But they came within like 4 or 5 games of being able to make the playoffs.
Yep.
So then I think Michael Ias is the GM, made all these moves, and he made the moves that he said he was going to make. But I'm curious. I like the Taylor Ward thing because they've had so many injury issues with Grayson Rodriguez. So it's like we can't depend upon this guy anymore, and we got a guy that Taylor Ward had a pretty amazing season last year. Has a lot of pop in that bat. The Shane Baz trade for me is the one that's like, I don't know that they gave up so much stuff. Not stuff. They gave up so many prospects for Shane Baz, who's probably, man, at his best, he's probably a number 3. He's not an ace-like pitcher. He's got some good stuff, but every season he's had so far has not shown that he can be consistent and strike the world out like what do you expect, in a number 1 or number 2 in a playoff game. The Eflin move is pretty standard. I mean, they need a guy that eats innings, and that's what he did. Had a really bad first half, figured something out, and came back. And, I mean, the Pete Alonso for me is, I mean, they brought a bat that they needed, man.
Yeah, to Brian's point, with them bringing that wall in.
Yep.
I mean, that guy, you may see him do what Schwarber did this year, 50 plus.
Yeah. If to your guys' point, if I put this team next to Toronto, the Yankees, and the Red Sox, I still would say they're number 4. But again, a baseball season's a weird thing, and you never know. The Yankees could be horrible, and Toronto could have the most corrupt clubhouse of all time, and they, they end up in 5th place because baseball is such a weird sport. But I would think on paper, man, the moves that they made Baltimore is really great. But I don't know that it puts enough over. Maybe they beat the Yankees out, but I think Boston's better than the Yankees this year, just because the Yankees haven't done anything. And the offseason's not over, so
Yeah.
obviously.
Well, that's the big dogs that those teams want are still sitting out there. So
Yeah.
We may talk in 3 weeks that all of a sudden one of them landed Tucker or Bichette or Bregman, and we're like, well, that obviously drastically changes what that team looks like too. So
Yeah. Let's jump to one more team. We'll talk about Toronto because they've done so many things. And then I want to throw another question about some maybe free agent predictions that we can wrap this part up with. So Toronto has like one of the biggest track off-season pages so far. It's kind of crazy. So they let a few guys walk. So Scherzer, Bassett, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Ty France, and Bo Bichette all walked, which Bichette's part of that pool we'll talk about later. Shane Bieber exercised his option, which I think is a really interesting move because his option was for like $14 million. And for the quality of pitcher that he is really, really low value. And I feel like personally for him, I don't know, there's some interesting stuff we can talk about later, or in a few. Other big moves is that obviously the Dylan Cease move, signing that 7-year, $210 deal. And yeah, that's a big one. They brought Cody Ponce over from the KBO, gave him a 3-year deal. Let's see, Tyler Rogers, they gave a 3-year deal, and he's the submarine pitcher. And then the last big one is they just signed. I'm gonna pronounce his name. I'm so bad. I'm sorry. Kazuma Akamoto, which is
close enough, baby. Close enough.
Yeah. Is he a righty or is he a lefty? I think he's a righty.
He's a righty. Righty.
Yeah, the righty
Third
infielder who hit that home run in the last WBC off of. Dang, I'm blanking. It was the last home run. It was the winning run for them in that Japan versus US game.
Yeah,
Who had some great contact skills, great pop. So man, they made some moves. They lost that World Series and they were like, not again. So what do you guys think of the moves? Any underrated? Any thoughts? Does it change their World Series game if they had this before?
Well, I mean, we were talking, I think, end of the year last year, what does Toronto do as far as obviously making moves in general? But we knew they had to get younger with their pitching staff because their pitching staff was super aged out, obviously with Scherzer and Bassett on there. The Bieber piece, I think, is underrated. He came back and looked really solid.
Second half.
And honestly, you're probably going to watch him put up a better season than what you're going to get out of Cease for half the money on the year. So he's a guy that, to me, the fact that he took that deal, because I think he would have made some money this offseason, just because there was plenty of teams out there that needed a guy that you could slot as probably your 2 at this point for a couple years and then slide him down to a 3 or 4. I think that he kind of probably killed his own money, but he must really believe in what this team was building. I mean, we saw them take the best team in baseball with, the roster from,
arguably
basically every.
Could have won. I mean,
Yeah.
a stuck
And
ball
they
in the
should have
bottom
won.
of the wall could change everything.
I mean,
Pajes running over.
That was unbelievable. But no, I mean, they've made a lot of interesting moves. Obviously, it seemingly looks like they're going to move from Bichette, but they could still sign him or Tucker, either one. And with what Vladdy did, Vladdy kind of had his full coming out. I'm a top 5, top 10 type player when I'm at my peak last year. He kind of proved that most of the year, especially in the playoffs. They added a lot of necessary pieces. Very intrigued to see, obviously, if they do end up landing one of those top couple guys just to kind of solidify things. But obviously with Barger and a couple of those other guys, it already looks like they've got some young pieces that people weren't necessarily anticipating showing up like they did in the playoffs. So, I love the moves, and I think that Cody Ponce, just looking at his stuff, I mean, that guy may be a seriously good pickup. Obviously, we'll see how it translates from Korea, but the stats he put up last year were pretty exceptional.
Yeah.
Go for
Brian,
it, Tim.
No,
Go.
I was gonna say. So the thing with,
I could see it churning.
yeah, so with Bieber, the thing for me makes me question. Like, he's had a lot of injury history. Is there something that is going on that doesn't need to be public that would make him decide, like, yeah, I'm gonna only take a little bit of money? I mean, I'm not saying $14 million is not a lot of money, but I mean, in baseball terms, this is like $14
Right.
for us. But man, he's a $30 million pitcher, $30 million pitcher, and he, like you said, he could have got that. So it seems strange. It kind of blows my mind that was taken, and then an extension was not announced. Like, he's taken a lot of risk personally.
Sure.
Because if he gets hurt again, man, his career might be close in the toilet, because he's going to have to do a rehab. He's going to have to do a really low deal to come back for it and prove it again. So it's a good pickup for Toronto, because they're going to save a lot of money on a really, really good pitcher.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was really good in the playoffs too. So that is the only thing that's, like, for me. But the moves itself, I mean, if you think about it, if you think about the World Series and they had Scherzer start those two games, if you put Dylan Cease in that position instead of Scherzer, it's probably a different outcome. It could be the same, because, you know, Cease is one of those guys that's going to be like the most elite thing you've ever seen, or he's going to be like giving up 6 home runs. And
Scherzer pitched pretty well.
Yeah, the first game, the second game, not so much.
Yeah.
That he pitched, but even you're not going to get that version of Scherzer again. So
No.
And then we don't know what Ponce is going to be. I kind of wish St. Louis did that deal, because that to me is like, you make that deal and it's like, if he's good, man, you flip him and you're going to get something good out of him.
Sure.
And if he's not, well, it's fine. It's not that much money,
Yeah.
type of thing. But it could play Toronto's favor really a lot. For me, the lineup, there's a lot of players that can only DH for me, and like Springer, Santander, and Okamoto are not good defenders at all. And the Blue Jays are notoriously known for being really good at fundamentals and really good at defense. And right now, your outfield kind of looks like trash defensively,
Yep.
which is really harsh to say, but like, Springer can't play because his knees are so bad anymore. Santander can't move to save his life and is really slow. And Okamoto doesn't have the greatest defensive metrics. So you're going to put those guys out there instead of like Lucas and Clement, who were nails for you in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing for me. And then they still want to bring back Bichette, which I kind of think seems like Okamoto's move kind of makes me seem like it's not a Bichette move anymore, just because you're bringing a righty infielder in. You already have a lefty infielder in Clement. Or not Clement. Who's the third baseman? Barger?
Barger.
Yeah, so, and maybe Okamoto's just a platoon player for Barger. So it's, they're going to do platoon splits. But overall, the pitching moves are fantastic, but the Okamoto move is interesting to me for the lineup purposes.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Santander. Honestly, I mean, he played himself so badly down the stretch of the year. That injury really didn't matter, because he wasn't playing in the playoffs anyways, because all those young cats were playing lights out. And, I mean, that guy was a $150 hitter at best. So
Yeah. He played himself onto the roster for something, and they had to take him off immediately because he got injured, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things with him. I think, obviously, you're hoping he's better.
Sure.
And I think you look at him as, again, a platoon bat, really. If he can settle into even, a bat off the bench for you, you'll take that as a switch hitter that sometimes plays when a player needs rest, or if other injuries pop up, you'll take that if he's willing to accept. Now, it's stupid money for that role, but, I mean, at best, that's what you're hoping for. None of the moves, like, for me, seem out of place for a team that was literally outs away from winning the World Series.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things for me. I look up and down the roster. Not a whole lot has changed. I do think that, like, the Bo Bichette piece is missing Outside of Guerrero, obviously he's a stud, but you don't have that quote unquote like hitter, just pure hitter, not necessarily power. Now, a lot of reports are that this could be the year that Varsho really takes kind of a step up offensively. And if he does, maybe then the Bichette thing doesn't hurt you in the long run. But I lean with you, Tim. I think the signing of Okamoto just really kind of says to me they're ready to let Bichette just find another place. Now, where that ends up being is yet to be seen. For me, I think, I actually like the Dylan Cease deal for them just because I think a change of scenery for him is going to be big. I think it's going to help. My bigger concern is just Savage. Is he going to be able to be that same player we saw at the end of the year? I mean, he's good, but we've seen a lot of good pitchers come out in year 2 or when teams get the book on them, it changes dramatically. And so to me, again, it's kind of like Baltimore here. I don't know what the depth of pitching is going to look like beyond the frontline starters that they have. Now, if they all stay healthy and are pitched to their, averages, awesome. The Ponce deal, again, shot in the dark for me, I think is wonderful. A lot of those guys, they typically have success early on until teams figure them out, and then they go through a lull and struggle, and then they find something again and kind of settle out to what they're truly going to be. So, for them, I think it's a low risk to give it a shot and see what happens. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You're going to be buyers at the trade deadline anyway. So, so for me, I mean, I would still put them as competitive and probably up there fighting with the teams of the AL East, unless a major injury disrupts what's going on.
For me, I feel like you can kind of look at the Santander move and you're like, in a vacuum, this doesn't work for this team at all. Because if you think about their roster, how contact oriented they are, their approaches, like all of these guys have such good bat to ball skills, except for Santander. Like he's the biggest swing. He's a Schwarber type bat. He's going to strike out a lot. Going to not hit home runs this year, but hypothetically hit tons of bombs. And it's just the opposite approach. Which I feel like if you asked him that he's never the GM, he's never going to say, but like regrets that signing. Somewhat, and you never know what he can be. You always hope players can come back.
Right. I mean, if he goes back, I mean, you think about Baltimore 22 to 24. If he goes back to just the average of that, where he's a 245 hitter, he's hitting 30 home runs, that is going to be massive for that lineup if these other guys stay with their contact-oriented self.
Sure.
That's a big deal. And now, again, the bigger question to me is the defensive side, because you have Springer and him who are not going to be able to play the outfield at the same time.
And I don't think you want either of them in the outfield. Is the thing.
If you can help it, right? But one of them's gonna have to play. If you want them both in the lineup.
Sure. I mean, in Varsho, a catcher turned elite center fielder, which is wild to think about. Has pretty decent range and can cover some ground. But Roger Center, I mean, if you think about Santander in right field, like
that to me, they're holding out on Kyle Tucker.
If you think so?
The way that outfield's lined up, just because you're bringing in a guy who is a great outfielder, to where you can put Varsho out there in center if you need to and move Springer to right field or left field, wherever you need to. And he can be totally serviceable out there. He just can't cover center like he used to. I mean, we saw the way his body fell apart down the stretch in the playoffs. So, I mean, honestly, it may come to their benefit to have Santander sitting on their bench because they may be able to take and platoon them 2 or 3 days a week. You're able to sit.
It's just crazy. He's making $21 million to sit on the bench.
But at the same time, they may do what they did in the playoffs, and they may throw a Barger or one of those guys out there in the outfield because they're elite.
That's what I'm saying. Like, these young kids that are making no money are better versions.
I agree with you. Like, I think their GM probably sitting here, obviously, hindsight's 2020. You didn't know that Barger and Clement and some of these guys were going to step up the way they did last year. Obviously, you hope that, but Santander's coming off of a pretty solid stretch, and you're like, we're going to bring in a strong bat to pair with Vladdy and Bichette and just drive in runs like crazy. And then, unfortunately, Santander was a shell of himself last year. But then these young cats, you're like, oh, actually, there may be a lot more upside here than we realized.
Who is the player that almost hit the home run that Pages robbed and knocked? Was it Barger?
That was Barger.
Yeah, it was Barger.
That kid, you can't take him out of the lineup. He's got to play every day.
Well,
and then you got Clement, Lucas.
All those guys are utility guys. You can kind of put wherever you want to, too.
Exactly. So the one thing about Tucker for me with the Blue Jays that I think is kind of interesting, if you look at Toronto's payroll, they're setting it $279 right now, which is really close to the 300 mark. Tucker or Bichette's going to take them over 300. I don't think they've ever been there. They are one of the wealthiest teams in base, or have one of the wealthiest owners in baseball.
Yeah,
but that's a lot of extra tax money to put a $30 million guy. Probably, I mean, Tucker or Bichette's going to be 30. I mean, you got Vladdy making 40, Cease making 25, Springer making 25, Gausman making 23, Jimenez making 15.
I will say being as close as they were, I feel like we've seen it in the past. These teams that are right there are more likely to make a deal that they are not typically likely to make when
because they're so close.
So close. True. And you get a healthy Bo Bichette, they probably win the World Series. Because they don't take him out of the game for, IKF and things like that. And Bichette was already hitting well, even as a guy who you knew basically was just going to hit singles most of the time he got up to bat. So
I'm remembering that home run. Yeah, in Game 7. Oh,
it's just beauty. That's what their owner's doing right now, ready to.
I wanted more.
Right.
All right, let's do this. Brian, you had a list of the leftover big cats for free agency. I want to have you read them off, and let's just do a quick prediction hit where we think the rest of them are going to go, and we'll wrap up the.
Do you want me to stop after each one?
Yeah, let's do individually.
All right, so the first one, I think, obviously, we've mentioned him a couple times. We'll start with Kyle Tucker. That's the one that hasn't signed as a free agent yet. So, Michael, I know your heart, but where do you think he actually lands?
Yeah, well, I would hope that the fact that they haven't made any big moves tells me the Cubs are going to try to make a big move, but the fact that they haven't tells me he's either landing in New York or he's going to Toronto. Based off of our previous conversation, I'll just say he's going to Toronto just so they can kind of push that over because the AL East is stupid good. I mean, we're talking about Tampa Bay is going to be right there too because they always are.
It's disgusting.
They're going to have a payroll that's like an eighth of what the Yankees and Red Sox are, and they're still somehow able to compete with them. But I'll say Toronto is where he's going to land.
Tim, what you got?
I think I'm going to go. I was kind of debating between the Mets and Toronto, and I kind of think I want to go Toronto, but I think the Mets really needed his position more.
Pushed him over the edge.
Yeah, I mean the only thing that makes me question it is simply Soto. When he came to the Mets, he said, "I want to be a right fielder."
Yeah,
and I don't think you can move Soto over to left field, which means you're going to be moving Tucker to left field, which is kind of dumb because Tucker's an elite right fielder.
Yeah.
So if they could figure out how to navigate that situation, I think he fits with the Mets the best. Yeah. But I also think he fits with Toronto. So, but I'm going to say the Mets.
The under the radar team, the Houston Astros, bring him back.
That would be awesome. I think in the world, I would love it. I would. But for me, I mean, obviously, if I'm putting money down, I've already said I would hang it on the Mets. I think they're ready to kind of make that move. For me, the underrated team that I think could sneak in and do something would be the Giants. I could see San Francisco making a play and trying to pull him out there. Shout out to Out of the Park Baseball. Like, running through the offseason sim on that.
Yeah.
Every time I've done it so far, he ends up on San Francisco for some reason. And I'm not real sure why.
Yeah.
But when I started looking at the numbers and the pieces, I was like, okay, it makes sense out there on the West Coast if that's something that he wants to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
All right. Next big one, I'll throw out two. We can talk about them real quick because they're both starting pitchers. It's going to be Ranger Suarez, who's coming from the Phillies, and then Framber Valdez, who's still unsigned from Houston.
You go first, Tim?
So Valdez is interesting to me because I think the clubhouse stuff. Well, I mean, we're not in any of it, but it seems like it's known, and he's expensive. So I'm kind of thinking he's going to have to do a 1-year deal kind of thing, like Blake Snell had to do a couple of years ago. So if that's the case, I could see someone like the Giants bringing him in. I could see Houston bringing him in on a 1-year deal. I could see Atlanta doing that. I could see, honestly, Baltimore could probably use it the best in a 1-year deal type of situation. I don't think I don't think Baltimore would give him a long-term deal.
Yep.
But if it gets down to that type of market, Ranger Suarez is interesting. I'm gonna defer real quick. I need to think about that one because I forgot about Suarez. Yeah, somebody else go and I'll come back.
Yeah, for me, Valdez for me is the interesting piece as well. I thought Baltimore would be more in on him from the beginning.
Yeah,
which leads me to kind of lean to your point more. Maybe there is something more to kind of that clubhouse vibe feel that teams are a little more scared of in that regard. A fascinating kind of under the radar team. I don't think he will go there, but I think it would be kind of interesting if they could do a 1-year deal would be Detroit, especially with all the rumblings of potentially Skubal on a move at some point, maybe not in the offseason, but even mid-season, something like that, just to give you, another pretty dominant lefty that has some playoff experience that obviously they desperately need. Their team's good enough to be in the playoffs. They need something to push them past a little bit more. So I could see that kind of unfolding in that regard. Ultimately, if he doesn't go anywhere, and he ends up really with the 1 year, as painful as it is to say, I think the Dodgers just swoop in for a 1 year. They give him a crazy amount of money, and he doesn't really have to worry about being the frontline guy.
Yeah.
And they I don't want to say that's the case, but it wouldn't surprise me if we get close to spring training and all of a sudden it's announced a 1 year, $20-some million deal with the Dodgers, that he's going to be there just for that, that chance. As far as Suarez, for me, I think if things land right, he probably goes back to Philly.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
I think it's just more of a product of they're trying to figure out what their other payroll is going to be allotted to now, especially the re-signing of Schwarber, which we all knew was going to be the big push for them. Now they just need to, kind of figure out what some of those other supplemental pieces are going to be to see what the overall or maybe the AAV that they'll have available for someone like Suarez.
Let me go real quick, Michael. Now that I think about it, either of these guys could land and be a good spot would be the Padres. The money for Valdez might be too high, but I could see Suarez money being in their ballpark because I know they're having some weird payroll issues with the ownership. But they lost Cease. They need another starter. So I think the Padres would be a good fit for one of them.
Yeah, I think obviously with the way that Valdez kind of melted down the stretch, obviously ultimately ending with the throwing the ball at the guy. I think it.
What do they call that? Is that called crossing up or something?
Well, I mean, when it's unknown to both parties, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you just got to mix up a cross up, however you want to.
Little friendly fire is what that was.
Right.
I think at points that he's gone in Houston, but I can tell you this much. I don't think it's necessarily in their best interest to move on from him for a 1 or 2 year deal. Like, I think that would make sense to bring him back because they're relying a lot on the fact that McCullers can stay healthy and a couple others, and they still are in that we really need to win right now window with what they have sitting out there with Altuve and Correa, even Christian Walker and a couple of these other guys. Like, these guys are all aging, and so Houston, and it looks like there may be a changing of the guard happening there in the West with Seattle. So if they're going to get it done, they're starting to fold up into that Philadelphia window where they kind of need to get it done. So it would make sense there. But I do like a 2-year deal with Baltimore with Fromber. Yeah. I think there was a point in time I thought Boston may take a shot at him on a short deal, but I think they've got their eyes elsewhere right now. So I think Valdez probably signs somewhere else. And then Suarez, I think he's going back to Philly. With the way that they had issues with Nola last year, they really need a solid 2-3, and that's assuming that Wheeler's still good. Who knows? Yeah. Obviously, hopefully, he's able to come back and be the same guy. But
if he's not, man, he earned every bit of what he got.
100%. The guy has been an absolute dog for that team, and has put them on his back multiple times in the playoffs. So it's like,
and you don't really know what Nola.
That's either. Nola is a huge, and you hope it's not the case, but was it Dominguez or whatever? You hope he can repeat what he did this last year, but you're also putting a ton of pressure on him that's going to have to be.
You mean Sanchez?
Sanchez, yeah.
Yeah, Christopher Sanchez, yep.
Because, he was great last year, and it would be awesome for them if he can transition to be their number one for sure, and you're able to slot Wheeler and Suarez and Nola just kind of interchangeably. That'd be awesome for them, but we'll kind of see. But I think he's going back to Philly.
Yeah, Sanchez was my Cy Young pick, but then Paul Skeens existed.
That's going
to be a problem for a while for a lot of other pitchers.
Till he ends up in New York.
Yeah, well.
Sorry, Brian, I cut you off.
No. I was just saying, too, like, Philly's also brought up Painter. I mean, obviously, he's going to come into the mix this year, so seeing what he is could really benefit them greatly.
They had to put him on the 40-man.
That doesn't mean he's but he's ready. I mean, he was already kind of getting that taste a little bit last year, and I think they're ready to give him a full shot at it. So it's just a matter of, what he is. I mean, if he comes in and can be something, then maybe you don't have to be so concerned with Nola.
Yeah.
Or Wheeler if Wheeler's health issues
you're just paying both of them a lot.
Yeah, but if you could use them as a 6-man rotation to really help limit how much Wheeler and Nola are having to throw during the regular season, that would probably benefit them greatly.
Yeah.
All right.
Side note real quick. I forgot to mention, I thought for most of the time, I legit thought Tucker was going to end up in L.A.
Oh, no. I
saw a thing yesterday that said the Dodgers are getting every one of the free agents that are remaining.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me. Was it
Mr. Fax?
Right.
All right. 2 big third basemen left is old Gino, Eugenio Suarez, and then Alex Bregman. Those are the 2 big, probably, infielders that are left there. I will throw this name out there. I don't think it's a big name, but I think it could be a big impact where he ends up, and that's Harrison Bader. And then that'll be the main free agents that we talk about.
So I'll do real quick because I've got it figured out. I think Bregman goes to Arizona, and I think Gino goes to Boston. And I think because Bregman signs with Arizona, I think Boston picks up Gino.
More motivated,
Yeah. And I think, honestly, between the two, those are the better choices for both because it's a good swap of. But Gino hit super great in Arizona, too. True. So.
Yeah, I think he'll hit well in Boston as well if he's there. I think that ballpark lends to him.
That pool side.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that logic. I mean, the more and more I hear about Arizona, being in on Bregman, it does make a lot of sense because they need that defensive guy that is offensively potent as well. Like I don't want to take anything away from Bregman on that side, but he's definitely a step up defensively from like Suarez.
Yeah, very much so.
So for the pitching that Arizona stems to have and is planning to kind of run out there for this year, they're going to need someone like Bregman. So I think, they go all in on that. Boston seems right to me for that regard. It'd be interesting to see if Toronto misses out on like a Kyle Tucker. Do they pivot and try and bring in Suarez for another big bat? That would be kind of maybe the sleeper that I see. Not that I think it would be ideal for them, because then I think they start clouding their infield and their defense, especially with what I would say is below average defenders, which could be problematic down the road. But, I mean, man, adding a bat like that is never a bad thing.
Yeah. Arizona gets better defensively.
100%. I mean, you talk about Perdomo and then
your right side of the
Bregman
infield
on that. Yeah.
Yep.
So
You already
I mean,
have Ketel Marte locking it down a second too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
Unless he goes somewhere, right?
Although,
that's the other big piece.
I don't know the name of Arizona's GM, but didn't he come out and say, like, if it doesn't happen by this date, we're moving on because I don't want to take this longer. I think he said something about that. You know, an underrated third baseman market would be Houston, because they've also talked about wanting to move Paredes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
both
but
of
I
them are
think
pull hitters.
Yeah, but I think they want a defensive guy. I think they miss not having Bregman, and Paredes is not right. He's not a defensive guy, but Bregman's been pretty vocal. If you go back and look, he does not have necessarily a desire to go back like Correa did. And now you got to remember Correa's there too.
Oh yeah, that's
and
true.
They're going to put him at third.
Yep,
that's going to be a better defensive pickup for them.
Yeah.
I think Paredes slots in at second base and potential backup first baseman if you need that. I mean, ideally, in the best of worlds, you said it earlier, Michael, if they could somehow figure out how to re-sign Tucker and put him back in right field, it allows Cam Smith to move over to left, and you can put Altuve back at second base. I mean, then there's some potential there again in that lineup, but that may not happen. So I don't want to stir the pot there, because I don't think Tucker's going to go back to Houston as much as I think it'd be great.
Yeah. Michael, what do you got for this team?
Yeah, I liked Gino back to Arizona, but Bregman does make sense. Just because Gino did rake there in Arizona. So I could see it makes sense for him and them both. Because he
for a third time?
Come the end of the year was ironically the piece that they needed that they didn't have. But, yeah, I'd say, obviously, he kind of hurt himself with the way things translated back at Seattle. He kind of turned back into the guy he was in Seattle previously.
Except I think he made up for it in that one in an ALCS game.
I'd say if Seattle would have run the table versus Toronto and he had another couple clutch hits, people would have been a lot more likely to forget the fact that he was basically a non-factor the last month.
Yeah.
It did not help that Naylor came over and was absolute nails for them. And then you're rolling Gino out there and you're like, he hasn't had a hit in 5 games. That's not good. So I had Bregman going to Detroit. I've seen that popping up quite a few times. I think that can make a lot of sense for them. McKinstry is pretty versatile, and I don't know that you're going to replicate what you got out of him last year. With Bregman, you pretty much know what you're getting. A very solid defender and a very solid hitter, and that's kind of something Detroit needs. But obviously, a lot of that hinges on if they're keeping Skubal in town or not. Because if they move Skubal, obviously they're kind of pushing that window back out a couple more years. So that'll be interesting. I'll say Gino to Arizona just because But Boston also makes sense for him because those three teams really, to me, are in need of probably a solidified third baseman. And once Bregman lands wherever he's landing, the other teams are going to pivot to Suarez probably most likely.
So if you had to draft a third baseman, who are you picking first based on the tools that the player has?
I would have taken Bregman because I think defense matters a lot. And Suarez
Especially
has
at the
never
corner.
been a great defender.
No,
not
at all.
When he was in Cincinnati, he raked, man, there in Cincinnati. But
I mean, the tools are obviously very separate from each other, but they probably make the same amount of money.
Yeah,
hypothetically.
Yeah. No, it's kind of funny because coming out of the year, everybody knew Bregman was for sure opting out of that deal, but to me, it seemed like all eyes pointed towards he was definitely re-signing with Boston. And now that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. So I don't know if that's on Bregman's side or Boston's side where things have cooled off, but that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fun. For me, I'll just throw out, for me, the interest in Harrison Bader would be somewhere like Toronto, I think, if they could pull it off and get him there. Because he gives them solid defense. He's a plus bat against lefties. I mean, obviously, you can platoon him a little bit, but he can play any outfield position there. So, I mean, he's going to benefit any team. There's still part of me, depending on what the Cardinals would do. I wouldn't mind seeing Harrison Bader back in St. Louis.
100%.
Great trade piece.
Yeah, to be in left field, especially if you move on from Donovan and Nootbaar. In that regard, and you need a left field bat right there. To me, that makes a lot of sense. But ultimately, I think if Toronto does miss out on a Tucker or somebody like that, maybe they quickly pivot, and it keeps them close to that luxury tax threshold with what he's going to make for 1-2 year deal if you can swing it for someone like him, and he gives you a lot of defensive versatility.
The only thing for me with Bader is he has said. Now, I mean, the market's going to dictate if it's true or not. But he said he wants a full-time starting position, so he's going to want that type of money as well, which deters someone from signing. Hey, we'll bring you in for a year, platoon you. Because I agree with you. I think it would be a great pickup for St. Louis if he was okay with a platoon position. He could play left field, and then when it's a lefty starter, he replaces Victor Scott in center for those type of things.
Right.
Fits with the culture already. Would bring all the fans back. But he wants to start, and he wants, he doesn't want to be a platoon bat anymore. I think that kind of diminishes. I know I know he's been there before, but honestly, he fits on the Mets roster right now really well because who was the center fielder that had Siri, right? I think Jose Siri was here before. I mean, think about the bat you're getting with Bader versus Siri, plus you're getting elite defense in center. Yep. And the Mets need a center fielder really bad that is somewhat above average at least. So he fits really well, but he's been there before.
Taylor's the guy they've got slated right now, who's a good defensive guy, has some pop. It's kind of similar to Harrison Bader in a lot of ways for them. But, I mean, I definitely see him going back to New York. I mean, he's a New York boy. That's that's where he loves. So I could see him on the East Coast just because it puts him close to that side. I mean, honestly, I think if Philly had space and money, Philly was a prime spot for him. I just think he's low on the totem pole and who they want to re-sign.
I honestly think the Yankees would be perfect for him, but, I mean, center field's pretty much taken up, and I think the other bat we're probably going to talk about is probably going to end up there as well, so there's just no room.
Yeah. Well, the one guy did we mention, I don't think we mentioned him, but we can do this real quick and then move on to the WBC, would be Cody Bellinger. Still hasn't signed. And so reports
he's a Yankee for me.
You think so?
Yeah, I think his bat fit there so well, and I think it would be the Yankees have stated that they've made an offer to him and they're not changing it. Yeah. But I also think his market is not as valuable everywhere else as some of these other players.
He's a Boris guy. He's going to hold out.
I know.
He is.
He fits in the ballpark.
He's such an interesting piece because I can see him landing with basically every large market team.
Yeah.
Because he makes sense with the Yankees for obvious reasons. He's raked up there. But to me, they're going in on Kyle Tucker.
The Yankees?
Yes. Their
No,
fans
no way.
are calling for that like crazy.
No, I know, but
Left
no,
field.
no way. No
I-
way.
Tucker, Grisham, and Judge.
Definitely see Tucker. I don't know that they're getting Tucker, but Bellinger would be the piece they
Tim's
pivot
worst
to,
nightmare.
obviously.
No, I originally had him going to the Yankees. I just there was something that came out about how he would never play for them. He stated he would.
Well,
he
that's
would
highly
never sign with-
possible because he doesn't seem like a Yankee type guy. But
No.
no, Chicago. I've seen a lot of reports that the Cubs may be interested in bringing him back.
I have seen that
for
too.
a couple years.
I mean, honestly,
on a
great
high
fit.
amount of money. It is. He played well in Chicago. If it push comes to shove, I could see the Dodgers taking a shot on him again for a year or two if he's not signed something and we're getting close to spring training, because they needed to fill a gap out there in the outfield. And obviously, since he left Los Angeles, that pressure kind of was taken from him that he had out there in LA for a while, because he went from a rookie of the year type player to MVP type player to all of a sudden this guy couldn't hit and all that pressure was there. And then once he left, he's kind of returned back into a guy that's definitely got a lot of power, that is a well above average fielder. And the Dodgers definitely could use a guy like that. And they obviously will spend. So if it's going to cost them $35-40 million for a year or two, they're probably willing to pay it if he's not able to nail down a contract with one of those other guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only
for
person.
me-
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
No. You
go for
finish
it.
up.
No, I was just gonna say I'm with you, Tim. I think in the end, I think it gets delayed, but I think the Yankees end up just paying what's needed for him because they're gonna miss out on a couple other people, and so that it's gonna be the only pivot, and it gives him a little bit of flexibility because he can play first. Some other options that it gives him. Do I think it's the best? Probably not, but it is the best for his bat because he gets that short porch again. He's just going to have to be willing to take maybe a few less years than what he initially wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only person you didn't mention is Bo Bichette.
Well, I felt like we talked about him. I mean, but go for it. Who do you think he ends up with?
I feel like there's a place that I want, and there's a place that I think it makes the most sense now,
Yeah.
and I think he goes to Boston.
Why Boston?
So he stated that he's willing to move to second base and third base now. Now I don't think Boston gets Gino and Bichette.
Right.
So, but I think if they're going to take their pick, they're going to pick Bichette.
100%.
And I think he has some incredible stats in. If I read it right, it has some incredible stats in Fenway.
Probably.
His bat fits really well there.
He may
They
hit
don't
from
really-
our home
They
runs,
don't really
I heard.
care about defense. I mean, he's not like a horrible defender, but he's not a great defender.
Yeah.
Trevor Story's at shortstop, so he's not. There's no place for him to play short.
Yeah.
And honestly, Boston has a lot of money available right now. I know they're not interested in spending necessarily, but which is crazy to me. But that might be a little bit of a bias. I don't know.
That's okay. You're allowed. I would have a bias slot for me. I think he fits really well in Houston as well.
Yeah, but is
in
that
that
realistic?
regard.
Is that as realistic?
I don't think it's realistic. I wouldn't like
'Cause
again,
Altuve's
I
at
wouldn't put
second.
it out there. Well, I mean,
Well, he should be.
he does dabble in left field. I'm just saying.
he does the dab out there.
I mean, Boston's a good fit for him. If he wants to get outside of that,
You mean the AL East?
yeah, like if he wants to get outside of the AL East, there are some other teams. I'd be fascinating to see. I don't think they're going to, but if Seattle could get in on him to play second base, that would be an interesting spot for them. I know right
Love that.
now a lot of reports are like obviously Brendan Donovan from the Cardinals
Yeah.
going to end up in Seattle. So
Yeah.
to me, if they can't make that deal with St. Louis, if they're willing to spend the money, he's a good fit. If he's, like he's saying, if he's willing to play second base or even a little bit of third, they've definitely got the availability to let him play those spots.
For sure.
True.
It's a great type of bat for a ballpark, too, because
100%.
he's not dependent upon home runs and pop. He's just he's a great hitter.
Yep.
Holy cow.
He'll be
He's
getting driven in like crazy, too, by J-Rod in the dumper.
I looked at the stat maybe yesterday or the day before. I think he's one of the only players currently in baseball that's hit 300 on every pitch.
Saw that same stat. It was
I was just like, whoa! In today's game, that's pretty unreal.
Yeah.
Right, doesn't happen.
Well, there's a lot of years he starts a little slow, and then all of a sudden you look up and he's leading the league in hits, and it's like every year it's this guy. I love the idea of Bichette in Atlanta.
That's the other fit.
That's obviously they.
I just don't think they're going to move Albies.
Albies is the piece that's in the way, but it's a cheap piece that's in the way, and he has had some health concerns the last couple of years. And he's missed quite a bit of time in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Obviously,
he's not been great.
Correct. And honestly, that may be best thing for Bichette coming out of whatever injury he had that held him out for so long. And I'd say he probably re-injured some stuff playing on that. So, if you can DH Bichette for a month or something to give him some time, or even just some sort of rotation with having Dubon, that add some versatility probably to the outfield if I had to guess, but it could be an infield piece. But I'd love to see Bichette in that lineup. I think he'd do really well.
Oh man, that's true.
Be good.
I think it's underrated, the Seattle piece. I never thought about that.
I love that.
They have the money for it too.
Yep.
So that's a good thought. Right on. I think is that the last of the
That's
free
it.
agents? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of free agents.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
not one's worth talking about right now.
I guess let's roll into WBC, talk about that, and then there's one more question I'm going to pose to you guys. So WBC is happening this year. Obviously, we've talked about it before, and it's been promoted. If nobody's in the baseball news world, the team rosters are kind of getting set and finalized, and let's do who the top 3 favorited teams are.
Oh, easy. Okay.
Yeah. So the U.S. team has gotten stupid stacked. Obviously, the DR is pretty. I'll just go myself. I think U.S. and DR and Puerto Rico are the top 3 for me, with Japan coming in number 4. The pitching that has decided to play for the United States this year is just gross.
Wonderful.
It's amazing.
Pivoting from where we were at a couple years ago to where we're at right now is
Lance
unreal.
Lynn and Miles Michaelis and Wainwright to Joe Ryan, Paul Skeens, Nolan McLean. I forget how you say his name. Skubal. Oh yeah, Tarek Skubal. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
But DR stacked too, and to me, honestly, Albert Pujols being in the dugouts is a big game changer for because the DR in 2023 really fell flat on their face and couldn't do anything. But honestly, I think putting Pujols in that position and the respect that he commands from all of players from the DR is just like, oh yeah, we're gonna listen to this guy. Whatever he says, I'm gonna do. Because there's a lot of superstar talent on that DR roster that you could say, oh yeah, none of them are gonna mix together. But I think, and they could fall flat again.
Yeah.
I mean, when you put a bunch of stars like in those NBA teams together, there's like too many big personalities. But I know Pujols is a game changer, and I don't know. I'm just a big fan of Puerto Rico's team. Lindor, Hernandez, Kike Hernandez. There's just some small pieces, and Yachty being in the dugout too is, I think, a small thing. But I think that's probably a bias. Japan's technically probably better than Puerto Rico for sure, but we're all allowed to have a a bias, right?
Everybody is.
Japan for me has got to be in your top 3 just because of Shohei. Just because that guy's just.
But he's not going to pitch apparently.
That's the right call.
We say that.
Yeah, we say that.
Yeah. All of a sudden it's a game versus the U.S. for a championship again, and somehow he's coming out of the bullpen or he's starting. But yeah, the U.S. roster, you already went into it, Tim, is like ridiculous this year. They've got everything they need. They've got great defense. They've got elite hitters. The pitching staff, I mean, some of these other teams probably won't even score a run during a couple of these games. So, and then I would say the DR, because I think when we saw their roster come out, we talked about it, and I believe Yainer Diaz is basically the only guy that's on that roster that's not a former All-Star or been in an MVP top 5 multiple times. That roster is stacked. But like you said, a lot of personalities, what's best for the team, really should Manny Machado be batting in your top 5 at this stage in his career versus some of these other young cats that are monster hitters, who knows? But I'm sure that's where he'll end up being slotted. But that team, if they can play together, is basically an all-star roster. Obviously, their pitching is probably not going to match up with the U.S.'s, but they may be able to hit their way through the entire WBC, so that'll be okay.
Yeah, for me, I mean, the top 3, I think I would lean towards DR, U.S. I'm with you, Tim, in the sense I think Yachty sways me a little bit.
Yeah.
On that, I mean, Japan's going to be there, obviously, and I think they're a very talented team. For me, and again, this is just pure love for Yachty. But I think he's got a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. And the World Baseball Classic gives him an opportunity to do that. And I think maybe he can pull something out of his players to get a deep run. I don't think they win it. I think the DR and US are too powerful in that regard. You hit it, Michael. And for me, the big change, I mean, obviously the pitching is what everybody's talking about, but the defensive outfield alignment too across the board for the US is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about Corbin Carroll in left, PCA in center, you've got Judge in right, but you've got a lot of other replacements that could fill in.
Well, and you got
there.
Byron Buxton just sitting on the bench.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like you've got plenty of, the righty comes in, a PCA is going to go ahead and stay in center. The lefty comes in. Guess what?
Yeah.
We got Buxton who's going to go out to center. I mean, to me, like, if there is a year to be, prideful in your nation as far as for the WBC, this is the year for US. I mean, they've put together a complete roster, in my opinion, for the first time in that regard. And so I'll be interested to see how it plays out. Again, the big catch with all of this is you're talking about it's spring training too. Like a lot of these guys are still getting into rhythm. And so how many innings are some of these pitchers really going to be allowed to throw? I hope, when it gets to the games that matter and not just the pool play, that they're in it for good, which knowing some of the personality types, like I'm not going out there to try and take the ball from Scooble in a matter, in a win-all game because he's going to fight me for it and might swing at me while he's on the mound. So, so it's just those type of things will be interesting to watch. But to me, the power of the DR's offensive alignment is really scary because you get guys that are just basically not that their training hasn't been ongoing, but they're really getting into normal baseball routine activity at this time. And then you're going to say, hey, go up against, 18-time All-Star. Here you go. Let him hit your fastball that's not at top speed yet.
Yeah. Let me throw this to you guys. I'm going to compare 2 sets of outfielders. On paper, which one are you going to take? So the U.S.'s outfield, again, both are stacked, but just thinking about the names. The U.S.'s outfield is going to have Corbin Carroll, Peaker Armstrong, Aaron Judge, and Byron Buxton. So far, there might be another bench that we don't know of. Harrison Bader could show up and be like, game changer.
That would be awesome.
The DR's outfield is Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, Julio Rodriguez, and Teoscar Hernandez.
Well, so the reason why I take the U.S. is because the U.S. has maybe one hole of those 4, whereas the Dominican has 2 holes defensively because Teoscar Hernandez is not a good defender.
Right.
And one of the other guys, I don't remember who else you said.
Juan Soto.
Juan Soto
would
is not a
probably
good
be
defender. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you have guys like Tatis can cover a heck of a lot of ground. So,
Platinum Glover.
he can make up for what Juan Soto's not going to catch out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Him and I think you might even consider, if you're DR, just running a 2 outfielder setup. But Julio
I like that.
and left center and Tatis in right center, and just have a 5-man infield, and you'll be good.
Yeah, they probably could cover it. Shoot, they're both really fast.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, we'll be putting out a lot of content talking about some specific games and matchups and stuff and players we're looking out for. I don't know if rosters are fully set either. I know Japan's roster is not fully set, and we're not talking about some teams like, Panama is there, Cuba is there, Mexico is there. Mexico was really great in the last round. As bad as it to say some teams are non-factors, and I guess baseball is a weird sport where someone can show up. I think the last WBC, Mexico was the team that was kind of like not on the radar, and then they were in the semis.
True.
And Japan took them out, and they almost beat Japan too. I do remember that game was crazy.
Well, some of these countries like that, they're all in because they don't have the clout or the players, so like they use it as a showcase, and they run out there, and sometimes I think they surprise teams because they just play hard. It's like the Bad News Bears in a sense. Yeah. They just get out there and they're going to hustle at everything. Yeah. Whereas some of these other teams that are stacked, not that they're not giving their best, but they're not gonna. They also got a season to go to. Some of these other guys, this is their season.
I can see a world too if you think about players that are from these countries. I don't know the rosters are set yet, but like Venezuela and Panama has some insane players that play in MLB from those countries. Like the Contreras brothers could all of a sudden decide to play, and they're on Venezuela's team, and that's a good team.
That's I think it was Nicaragua was like super underrated because they got a bunch of these random little islands that there's a ton of MLB talent came from. And then so nobody knew anything about that team, and then all of a sudden they're running out there, and you're like, geez, these guys are pretty good. And you're like, oh, that's because there's an all-star, there's an all-star, there's an all-star. But what's really cool about the World Baseball Classic for some of those places like Mexico and stuff is like their fans traveled super well at the last one. And they talked about, obviously, I wish I was there. I wasn't there. But they talked about how crazy the atmosphere in the stadiums were. They had people banging on drums and everything else. They said the stadiums were some of the loudest that people have ever experienced at baseball. So that matters. I mean, it's like any large sporting event. Whenever you've got a crowd that's backing you, the opposing team gets a little tight, and things are getting loud, and all of a sudden a team like DR or the U.S. that is supposed to be the favorite all of a sudden gives up a 3-run homer or something, and then they're back on their heels in a game that most people wouldn't have expected. So it's kind of neat with that.
Okay, so give me a sleeper team that you guys are thinking about on the WBC.
Oh man, jeez. Outside of the top 4 that I mentioned,
outside of those guys, Mexico would belong in a sleeper team just because they're not favorited.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if I had to pick one of them, Mexico would be that one. But there is some credibility too, depending on the team that Venezuela puts together. And what they're able to do given the certain circumstances that are surrounding that we don't need to talk about. Could be big. I mean,
It took me a second.
You took me out there too. I wasn't.
You weren't expecting that one, right?
No.
I mean, some things could change for them. I'm just saying.
That's definite consideration. That's for sure. No, I had Venezuela pegged as well, but maybe kind of a fun one to watch for would be Italy. They've got some guys on that team that are kind of good. Yeah. So watch the Pasquatch have a crazy WBC would be kind of fun. So they'd be kind of an outside one, but I could see I could see that team. They've got a couple other guys on that roster.
Panama would be
good.
another one. There's some sleeper players like Ivan Herrera is going to play for Panama.
Yeah.
There's some players that come from that area that they wouldn't necessarily be quote unquote household names, but could make up pretty formidable squad. A lot of these.
Von Herrera is going to rake in those games, 100%. They're playing
a lot
Canada
of these
first
teams,
round.
It's pitching that always holds them back.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing for a lot of these smaller teams. They just don't have the depth.
So I think I'm picking Venezuela. Probably, I was looking at the roster, and as I thought about it, I was like, some of these they might be better than Puerto Rico.
Yep.
Like Altuve, Luis Ariz, Eugenio Suarez, Gleyber Torres, Luis Rengifo, Jimenez, Ronald Acuna, Santander. It says Miggy Cabrera is playing and DHing.
That'd be
even though he's retired, which is crazy. But I don't doubt that.
He's dropping some bunts down. Watch out.
Yeah, guy can't even walk to first base, but
it probably is not going to be great, but it's going to be fun to watch. Hey, it's Miggy Cabrera. He
100%.
hasn't played baseball in 3 years, and he's out there. But Salvador Perez, yeah, he probably will be. Altuve and Ariz hitting in front of Miggy in 2026.
As they hit a walk-off on the DR.
Put some wheelchairs out so they don't get hurt.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I agree with you, Brian. Pitching is good. So what am I talking about? Panama? No, Venezuela. Their pitching rosters seems for Erod is on there. Jesus Luzardo, Pablo Lopez, Luis Garcia.
They're good. They're good pitching.
Yeah.
But then you start to look at their back end. That's where they're going to start to get in trouble a little bit.
Yeah, and there's a lot of no names.
Yeah.
Right.
You're going to see, and some of them could be like, "Whoa, who is this dude?" And some of them could be, "Oh yeah, 3 home runs in a row."
That's why. Yeah.
And they got no one else to go to.
It'll be interesting to see what the U.S. does because most of their pitchers they have are all starters. And outside of Matt Boyd and stuff, most of these guys don't really have much time in relief at all. So my guess is Matt Boyd is going to be that extend the innings type guy for grabbing 2 innings here or there in a game.
Yeah.
Maybe
they got
McLean
Miller.
or whatever.
Yeah,
Mason Miller would be closing it up, obviously. But
they got
Bednar,
Bednar, Miller, Clay.
Yep.
I forgot about Bednar. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, so
Forget what I said. They're going to vote down. Or lock
they
the
were
season,
smart.
The
I was
one
just
thing
giving
with
everybody else a
me
chance.
to remember, I think, especially because of the time of year it is and how it interrupts spring training, there's going to be a lot of piggyback. I think,
yes,
especially for the round robin stuff, because the teams that these guys are making money playing for are saying hey, this guy has to throw this amount of pitches this far apart. They all need this routine. And I remember D-Row talking about how one of the pitchers couldn't throw as often. I forget who it was, but he talked about how I wanted to throw him, but maybe it was Shohei was talking about with Japan or something. Yeah. But one of the pitchers couldn't throw very often, and it limited their use. But that was the rule that he had in place. So I would be interested to see, because I could see some of these personalities. I could see Skeens in school saying, "No, screw it, I'm throwing as much as
100%.
Possible." But then he gets hurt, and the Tigers are screwed.
Yeah, well, that's what happened with Diaz. Diaz got hurt. Well, he got hurt celebrating, but that's part of the reason why some of these teams. I understand why they have some skepticism of these guys going, but at the same time, it's basically the Olympics for baseball. We don't get this, and there's just something beautiful about the ball that gets played.
It's one of those things for me. This is more important than the baseball season. And these guys are making a lot of money to pitch for these teams, and injuries screw a lot of things up. But man, it's good for the game of baseball that all of these
100%.
guys are pitching and just shoving.
Yep.
I never really paid attention to Lance Lynn as much. I mean, I knew he was a Cardinal. I watched him before. He was really fun on the mound. But what he did in the WBC in 23 was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And these guys care about it a lot too.
Yep.
I could see a world where like Skeens and Scooble are piggybacking off each other, and like McLean and Joe Bryan are piggybacking because the games are further apart. It's only one game. It's not like series of games.
Right.
So you never know. But I do think because of how good 23 went, I could see all of these guys saying, "No, I'm pitching more. Like I'm gonna throw. I don't care what Detroit says."
Yep.
Which puts puts the managers in an awkward position.
Yep.
Because he could get in trouble.
Well, on top of that,
no, I'm not giving you the ball.
Been tossed around as a head coach potential for other MLB teams, and if something like that happens, and he was told Skeens was allowed this many innings, and Skeens gets hurt because he let Skeens throw 3 more innings even though he wasn't supposed to. That could limit his job opportunities.
I don't think that's real. Do you guys think that's real?
I mean, look, somebody's going to, if he goes out
man.
there and puts this team together and they play well, he's going to get an opportunity.
It's clear that players really like him a lot if he was able to get every single one of these guys to sign on that he's gotten to sign on.
Okay. All he had to do was get Aaron Judge. And then Aaron Judge got everybody else.
I don't know about that.
You don't
I think
think
you
so?
get Skeens and Judge, then we can talk. Like I think Skeens was a bigger deal than Judge was overall. I mean, don't get me wrong. Judge, best player in baseball.
Yeah.
Like everybody wants to play with him.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, if you've got no pitching, like if they would have run out, if you put Judge out there and then you run out that same pitching we had from 2023, there are going to be some players that go, I love, like, don't get me wrong, I love to play with Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
But I am not standing behind that pitching staff.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know. I kind of think 23 was like, man, there's a lot of risk to having these elite pitchers pitch this much this early. So I'm not going to let this guy pitch for you. And now it's like, oh, everybody made a lot of money in 23. Okay, yeah, you can go for it, But I think also like Paul Skeens pitched for the Air Force. He's probably like, no, yeah, I want to do it.
He is
I
Captain
care.
America.
Yeah, like for real.
Yeah.
And Scooble has that like,
He's just a dog.
yeah, I don't care.
He's that blue collar. Yeah, he's got that blue collar mentality.
Yeah.
Give me a beer in one hand and the baseball in the other. I'm good. Let's go. That's right.
He's the true epitome of that one gif of the guy getting blown over holding the American flag in the wind.
100%.
Scooble is the epitome of that gif.
100%.
But guys, as you can tell, we are stoked for this event. I mean, the baseball season is going to be fun, but this like 2.5 to 3 weeks of baseball in March is just, man, it's so much fun. It's so incredible. And to what you said, Michael, like the amount of all the stadiums are packed.
Yep.
Like standing room only, sold out. I looked at tickets to go to Miami and I was just like, it's outrageous.
Never mind.
I'll be watching on TV.
Never mind. It's cheaper.
We'll get together. We'll do a live stream, okay?
Yeah.
We'll be good.
No, we will 100%. We'll talk about that more down the road because I don't have it finalized. But we'll put in a lot more WBC content, guys. If you could give us a follow and subscribe to the YouTube, and comment down below and let us know the thoughts. If you guys have any predictions for the free agents, have any thoughts for any of the moves that have been made for the teams, is Toronto going to win the World Series this year because of the moves that they made? Or what are you excited about the WBC this year? Let us know. And we thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.